presentation to you. So let me consent to the recording. If you can all press continue, and that'll be useful for our other students who also want to get access to this information and they weren't able to make it, unfortunately. But we're very excited to share this presentation with you all. My name is Paola Gonzalez. I am a staff member at the main campus at Sacramento City College in the Transfer Center. And I will be definitely sharing a lot of resources and great information for you all to know as a potential transfer student. And with that, I'll pass it on to Hector.
Welcome everyone. My name is Hector Eduardo Gamero Jauregui, and I am a Davis Achievement member, as well as another hat that I wear at Sacramento City College is an adjunct professor in the engineering department. And the Davis Achievement Program is a pilot program that is launched from the Davis Achievement Center to be able to help and support our students holistically. And for us, what that meant is to be able to reach out to our students and connect to our students, especially in this kind of pandemic mode that we're in this virtual online environment that we're in. We heard from a lot of our students directly that being able to connect, and in particular, one of the items that they would really enjoy, or at least wanted to be able to get support in, was being able to get supported with transfer. So that's why we were able to connect and be able to collaborate with the Transfer Center and bring in Paola Gonzalez in to be able to help us support. But specifically as well, for a lot of our students who are looking into being able to transfer, we also heard from them how overwhelming that might be with the application process. So I think this is also a great opportunity for our students to, if they've never, or if they were thinking about it and hadn't gotten started with it, they can get some great information. But if they have already started on that process, they can have someone they can connect to, someone they can know who can help them directly right after that. So thank you so much, Paula.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Hector and Paula. And so again, my name is Liliana Mendoza. I did a brief intro because honestly, even though I'm playing tech today, I am not great with tech. So I can't be like, oh, my name is Liliana, and then like go and set up everything in the background. So, but yes, my name is Liliana Mendoza. I am one of an adjunct counselor for the Davis Achievement Program. And so I am happy that you all are here. I'm also a proud transfer from Los Rios. I transferred from American River College to UC Davis. And I also worked at the Transfer Center previously. So I'm all about transfer. I know it's a process. So please enjoy this next hour or so that we have together. Don't be afraid to ask questions because you have a wealth of knowledge, not only from Hector, from myself and Paola, but also from each other. So we hope that we get to hear from you. And we're actually just going to kick it off with a poll. So hopefully, if you don't feel like you want to volunteer out loud, you can at least engage with the poll. And so right now, the first poll question is if you plan to transfer. And so please take a couple of minutes seconds to fill that out. If so, if you plan to transfer to a UC, CSU, a private, out of state, you're unsure. And so, yeah, we have a lot of people who are interested in UC, a lot of people in the CSU. Private, I'm happy to see that. Definitely want some people out of private, out of state as well, and unsure. And just know whoever is unsure, know that you're not alone in that. Hopefully with this presentation, you get some clarity on that.
Get the data go.
I know.
I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so seeing the data like in live action, I'm like, whoa.
So I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. Well, actually, I'm gonna give it 5 more seconds. Okay,
Yeah, look at
I'm
that
gonna end
data.
it now. So that's what we see. People are really interested in the UC, and so I guess Paula, you already know what you're gonna focus for today.
Yeah, great. I'm glad that we have a variety as well. CSU, private, out of state, and some unsure. So hopefully this presentation will allow you to learn a little bit more about each system and narrow down your decisions there as well.
And then we have two more polls. So there's this one coming up to you. This is the second poll. Is are you following the IGETC or CSU GE? And if you don't know, it's okay. If you're unsure, there's an option for that. So please fill that out of which one you're following.
Wow, I
A lot of
love how
I
fast they're coming in.
Mm-hmm. And if you really don't know what the IGETSI is, if you don't know what the CSU GE is, hopefully, again, by the end of this presentation, you will know what it is. And this one, I'll end it a little bit. And I think, wow, y'all are very responsive. I'll give it a little, a little
Yeah.
bit longer. No, and I appreciate it. Yay! Please enter your responses. We want to hear from you. We obviously put these polls because we want to know where you're at, right?
Mhm.
So I'm gonna close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As you can tell, I'm not the best with polls of how to when and how to close them.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, it looks like we have a very high number. About 19 of us are following IGETSI, a few for CSU, and a few unsure. And again, that's totally fine. This will be the space where you get to learn a little bit more about both pathways. And ultimately, when you go and speak to your counselor, you'll have a better idea of which one you're following and why you're following it also.
And so this is our last and final poll. And it is a very specific question. How many transferable units have you completed? And so there's a range, and just a little hint, your transferable units is not necessarily the same as all of the units you have on your transcripts. So something to think about.
Okay, I see them fluctuating. Good, good.
To be honest, I'm not sure about that. What should I choose here?
Okay. And so I realized I didn't put an unsure button. So my apologies. So it's all called, it's Natalia, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's okay if you don't know. Try to guess which one you have. It's if not, don't worry about it. And I do apologize. I realize I did not include unsure. So, but yes, thank you, Natalia, for that feedback. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll. Thank you, everyone. And then,
Okay, yeah, and it looks like again, it may be a little bit skewed if some of us don't know where we stand, and that's okay. But we have sort of an idea of maybe where we stand with our units, and it looks like a lot of us, about 29% of you, have 60 units or more, which is great because in a sense means that you're a little bit closer to transfer than you might think. So we'll move forward with kind of demystifying a little bit more what units mean and transferable and all of that good stuff. So thank you again, Liliana, for proposing these questions. It allows really to have more of a conversation. And please, yes, if you have any questions or anything you want to highlight, or if you need me to clarify anything, or any of us in the room, please be sure to utilize the chat. That's a very good, useful function. I know that sometimes we're not all able to unmute, which is fine. Please, we definitely appreciate questions because it really does mean that this presentation is for you. So I want to make sure that I can answer as many questions or refer you to as many resources if I'm not able to answer the question. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to be here again. If for those of you who joined a little bit later, my name is Paula. I am also a transfer student. I'm a Sac City alum from a few years back, and I went ahead and transferred on to our local Sacramento State here down the street. And I can say that from my transfer experience, I definitely wish that I would have had a little bit more support, a little bit more of these insightful presentations, these resources that were available to me, but I didn't know how to access them. So now I get to be the person to give that to you all here. And so I'm very grateful to hold this space and to be able to share a little bit about the transfer experience, transfer resources, transfer options, everything about transfer. So when you think about transfer, what is it that comes to your mind, right? When should I transfer? What's the ideal time? What does that look like? And the reality is it looks different for all of us. For me, for example, it took me about 4 years, 3, 4 years to transfer. Now that may look different for some of you. Some of you have already completed 60 units. Some of you are in your first semester, second semester. So it really varies. There's no ideal time frame for a transfer student. And I know that sometimes we hear, oh, I have to finish in 2 and I have to get through and make sure that I transfer and, meet all these expectations. But in reality, as long as you are planning it now rather than later, that's my best advice that I can give any student. Now is the time to begin, whether you're close to transfer, whether you're starting, as I mentioned already. Um, Starting that little brain to think about the watering that you have to do to that little seed of what transfer is you're in the perfect spot to be here today and be able to gain all this information. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Now that you have thought about transfer and you're here and you're saying, yes, transfer is my goal. Now you want to think about what are your options and what that path looks like for you. So I want to say that there are different pathways, right? We mentioned a few at the beginning, UC, CSU, out of state. A lot of you in the room are interested in UC, which we'll definitely dive into that. But I do want to say that there are other options. There's an HBCU route that students can take, private universities out of state. CSU and UC are our most common here in California, so I'll definitely chime into that. But I do want to say that there are different options. And if you want to have more of a conversation with more exploration or more information about those pathways, please, you can always make an appointment with myself. My contact information will be at the end, and we can definitely meet one-on-one and uncover those questions for you. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So I'll go ahead and start a little bit about the CSU. I know Mansoor had questions about it, so if you have specifics, please put them in the chat, and maybe Liliana, you can let me know if anything comes up relevant that I can answer. Okay, so for CSU, it is known to, we call it CSU, but it's the acronym stands for California State University. So there are 23 CSUs here in California, Sac State being our home campus, but of course there's Chico up north, down all the way to San Diego State. So you can see the map here on the right side, there's 23 campuses. And they all follow the same system, which is the CSU system, where students, as we mentioned at the beginning, whether you're utilizing the I Get CSU route, this is where that question comes in handy. It's really important for students to know what path they are following and to get all of the information that is relevant to that path they're following. So if you are interested in a CSU, the GE requirements you would be following is here on the second bullet, the breadth requirements. So it's important that when you meet with your counselor, the first questions or one of the first questions they will ask you is what requirements are you following or what's your transfer route? CSU breadth requirements is what will apply to those of you in the room who are interested in CSU. Now, I know that's a lot of information, so please, if there's anything you need me to clarify, please let me know.
So there's already two questions. There's a question asking, what is the difference between a CSU and University of California? And then there's another question, does the CSU have something similar to the tag?
Oh, perfect questions. Okay. So I'll go ahead and answer the second one first, and then we'll move on to the first question. So does the CSU have something similar to the tag? Look at you, Yogesh, you're on board. We'll get to the tag in a little bit. But for CSUs, we do have a similar process, which is called ADT. Now, it's not the same as a tag, but it's a similar process. So ADT stands for Associate's Degree for Transfer. And what that means is that students are able to gain an associate's degree at the community college and transfer on with that major upon completion of the requirements. Now, there's a few things to point out with this. Because it's in community college system, the minimum requirements to transfer is 60 units. So both for the CSU and the UC, the minimum requirements is 60 transferable units. We mentioned at the beginning, transferable is a keyword. That is a keyword. And I can say from my experience, when I was a transfer student, I had over 100 and something units, but not all of those were transferable, right? And this is where that question comes in handy. 60 units transferable to both CSU and UC. And we'll talk about that later. But to go back to your question, the ADT is an agreement that community colleges have with the CSU system. And so in a sense, it's saying that you have a guaranteed spot at a CSU as long as you complete the requirements, which is usually your pre-major requirements, your GPA requirements, and your general education. So that's a very important thing for you all to consider. Now, another thing is that it only falls under about 25 majors. So keep that in mind. It won't apply to nursing majors, engineering majors. It really depends on your major. So if you are considering the ADT, it's a really great option if you're close to fulfilling your requirements and you already know what that CSU is your route. So bring that up with your counseling appointment next time you meet with them and see if that's an option for you as a CSU transfer. Good question. And let's see. I'll move forward and then we'll get to the differences between the CSUs. Okay. Sorry, Lina, can you go back one more time? Okay, sorry. I want to highlight also the Golden Four. The Golden Four are very critical for the CSU route. So if any student is considering a CSU, whether it's, San Jose State, Sonoma State, Cal Poly, you want to consider the Golden Four as some of your critical courses. And you might have already heard this in your counseling appointments or if you've spoken to any of the university representatives. The CSU is very, very critical when it comes to transferring there following these 4 courses. So if you're taking notes, this would be the perfect time to write out these 4 requirements, and they are under the CSU breadth, as I mentioned earlier. So keep that in mind. And then there's also 2 application deadlines for the CSU. So they do have a spring transfer, which is coming up in this August for the following spring. And then they have a fall transfer, which is October 1st through November 30th for the following fall. So it's important to keep track of deadlines as a transfer student, because in a sense, you're applying almost a whole year in advance. And so if you are planning out your classes correctly, you want to know what timelines, what things you have to have in track in order to successfully transfer. So keep that in mind. If you're writing notes, again, deadlines are important, and these are the ones for the next upcoming cycle. Okay, and we have another question. Yeah.
We have several questions, but the first one is regarding to the application. Can we apply to both us in the spring and the fall, and that's specific to the CSU?
CSUs, yes. So let's say a student wants to apply this August for the following spring, and you've met all your requirements. You have your, your 60 units, your Golden Four, your major, all of that good stuff, and you decide you want to apply for a fall transfer instead because of whatever reason that you decide to, but you still meet the requirements. Yes, you can still apply for the fall, for the following fall. So that is an option for CSU students, as long as you have met the requirements and you are good to go for the CSU.
And then we do have a hand raised by Mansoor.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Mansoor. Question?
Yeah, hey there. So let's say if I finished my Golden Four and I reached these 60 units, but I didn't finish my pre-major classes, am I able to transfer to CSU, or is it better if I do my pre-major classes here and then transfer?
That's a very good question. Yeah, that does make sense. That does make sense. And now, my first suggestion would be definitely to check in with the counselor, and right now I'm not in my intern counselor role, so I can't necessarily answer that question in a more concrete way, but I do want to suggest that you do meet with the counselor, and especially if you're applying for an impacted major or a selective major at a UC, you want to be sure that you are fulfilling those critical pre-major courses. So at the end, we can give you our contact information to meet with the counselor to verify that you can get that taken care of. Good question.
Thank you.
And then we have something else, Liliana?
Yeah, we have Danesh with his hand raised, or their hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, thank you guys for your presentation. I had a question. So about you said spring transfer and fall transfer.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I have them right. The spring transfer, is that applying to, so that, for example, you start at a CSU in the spring, or are you starting next fall?
Good question. Yeah. So you would start at the CSU, the spring or the fall, the highlighted dark area. So for example, if you were applying this August or next August or whichever August, it's always the same timeline. It's always August 1st to the 31st. You apply during that time and you would start the university in January of spring 2022, the spring semester.
Oh, okay, I see. So you're applying to start in the spring, or you're applying to start in the fall. Is that right?
Correct. So you would apply October through November 30th and start in the fall of 2022 in August.
Okay. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good question. Yeah, and I'm sure that can help others as they're taking notes and clarifying their timelines as well. Thank you, Donish. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move forward just for the interest of time. I know we have some questions about the UC, so I want to make sure we tackle that as well. But again, keep asking questions, and if we can't answer them now, we'll type them out for you as well. Okay, so let's see. Moving on to the UC, I know a large percentage of us here are interested in UC, so I want to make sure that I can cover that and give you a lot of insight as to what that could look like for you. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, IGETC is the pattern that a few of you are fulfilling for the UC transfer route. I want to clarify that the IGETC pattern is really a guide for those students who are considering both the UC or the CSU. So this is a great option, the IGETC pattern, a great option for those students who want to apply to multiple, and that is possible. We've seen students who apply to Chico State, UC Davis, UCLA, and Cal Poly. So you can apply to both systems utilizing the IGETC pattern as a guide. So if that is you and you are still deciding whether UC is a good fit for you or CSU is a good fit for you, the IGETC pattern is a great way to go. The CSU breadth requirements will be specifically for CSU, but the IGETC gives you that flexibility to decide both routes. Okay, and with that being said, I'm going to go into what it looks like to transfer to a UC. So there are 9 UC campuses here in California. As you can see the little map here, again, it highlights all of them where they are located here in California. And again, going back to the deadlines, it's really important to clarify what that looks like for a UC. The UC only has one fall applicant timeline, with an exception of a few spring semesters, and that includes UC Merced, and a few other UCs. But I know that we're looking into UC and UC Davis specifically, so I want to cover that first. For fall, there's an application timeline of November 1st through the 30th is when you can submit your application, but it actually opens August 1st. So that gives students August, September, October, and November to work on your application. And this is why it's important and critical for you to know these timelines ahead of time, because you can really start preparing for them now. The UC application it's very, very a big application, right? And so you want to make sure that you are strategically setting up yourself to transfer successfully and what that looks like for you. So within the application, there are personal insight questions that students do have to fulfill. Especially as a transfer student, you are able to see the questions now. It's public information. The UCs are not trying to hide it or make it a secret and make it something scary for you. So you can, I wish I had the links, but you can simply search on Google UC transfer personal insight questions, and you'll be able to see them and pull them up there. And so I point this out because some of the questions do ask about community service, volunteering, special, like some creative arts and some challenges you've been through as a student, as a transfer student. So we want to highlight that because it's very important for students to know ahead of time what to expect when it comes to applying to a UC. And the great thing about you being in this workshop is that I can share with you that throughout the semester and even throughout the summer, we will have those kind of workshops and events that will help you really organize your UC application, your personal insight questions, understanding the tag, and make sure if you are applying for tag this year, what that looks like for you. So if there are any questions about that, you can put them on the chat as well, and I can cover those as well. But I want to highlight UC tab. UC TAP is going to be your best friend when it comes to applying to a UC. And maybe Liliana, if you want to chime in, you can always chime in. But UC TAP is going to be your best friend. And the reason why I say it, it's because it's your little guinea pig criteria. I don't know how else to explain it, but basically you're going to always tap on it. You're always going to update it, fill it out. It's going to be like your go-to application. And the reason why it's so important is because it becomes your UC tag if you are going to go that route. And essentially it becomes your UC application. And so what's embedded in this UC TAP is your personal information, your courses, your transferable courses. It tracks your GPA. It allows you to know which courses are meeting which areas, what your plan is looking like, as well as a big pointer is you're able to really connect with some of the possible programs that are offered at the UCs. You're able to get connected with the UC representative. You're also able to get news and notifications from the UCs through this account, and it's free. You don't have to pay anything. I sound like a commercial now, but really, it's really important for students to know that you should get started day one, even if you're just considering it. Let's say you're maybe considering UC Davis versus Sac State nearby here to Sacramento. But even if it's just a consideration, just starting the application and being able to fill out and say, hey, I'm interested in going maybe fall 2023. This is what my classes are. Then you're able to meet with the representative and they're able to quickly input and say, great, great, great. You met this requirement. You should take this class. You should take that. All of that good stuff all comes through your TAP account. And again, it's your foundation to your tag and it's your foundation to your UC application. And that's why it's so important to make sure that that's on file with us at the community college so we can really help you with your UC transfer. And now that was a mouthful. So any questions, any comments that I can say? Let me see. I see someone raise their hand.
I think
Is that correct?
Dee.
Yeah, Dean, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. My question is kind of broken up into two parts. The first part is when it comes to the transfer admission guarantee, does that application have to be submitted within 2 years of you being in community college, or are you allowed to apply for a transfer admission guarantee like anytime as long as it's in the fall and you have the requirements?
Okay, good question. Yes, I'm definitely gonna cover that. Let me go ahead. You can go on to the next slide, Liliana, and that'll cover that a little bit more. So here you go. This will answer hopefully your question. And those of you in the room who had a similar question or comment about it, here we'll give you a little bit more insight about the tag. So the tag really varies in GPA and also in major. And I think there's a question also that was answered in the chat. So thank you, Liliana, about that. Because it really varies by student and also by college. So as you can see the tag here on the screen, there's only 6 UCs that accept the tag. So as you can see them listed, this excludes UCLA, UC San Diego, and UC Berkeley. But all of the other UCs here do accept the tag agreements. And so the one of the very critical requirements is that students do complete the 30 UC transferable units at the time of applying for tag. So Adeem, hopefully this answers your question here. You do have to have those minimum 30 UC transferable units at the time of applying for tag. So let's say you are applying this year in September, you must have met the 30 UC transferable units to be qualified. And that's only one section of the tag. Remember, there's a GPA requirements, there's a major if your major qualifies for it, and there's a few other things here. You must have completed your English and math as well. And there's another awesome resource you can utilize by Googling UC tag matrix. You'll be able to pull up this document that really outlines and highlights what those tag requirements look like, or at least a snippet of it per UC. And it also gives you the links directly to the UC tag website per college. So look that up if you're really interested. And again, you can do a follow-up meeting with myself or a counselor as well to review a little bit more about the tag. And the deadline again is September 1st through the 30th. Yes. Oh, sorry, Liliana, you're on mute. Were you saying something?
Yes, I was. Thank you. There was a question, two questions about the UC TAP, and I did answer it on the chat, but in case someone else has the same question, they're asking
Okay.
how do you, if you can get help to create it.
Yeah.
And so if you can answer that.
Yeah, most definitely. Perfect. Great question. I would be the designated person that can really help you and dive deep into it, one-on-one appointment. We can look at your transcripts, make sure it's all filled out correctly. Of course, the representatives as well from the UCs can also guide you to it. But I can definitely leave my contact information. I will definitely leave my contact information at the end, and you can email me directly. You can call our office directly and make an appointment with myself and get you going with your TAP and make sure you're good to go. Good question. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. If there are any other questions about UC, please put them on the chat, or you can also unmute yourself. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about HBCUs. I know I mentioned there's a few routes. The HBCU route, as you can see here, is similar to what I mentioned about the ADTs. So you can utilize the ADT agreements to transfer to an HBCU. And the requirements here for them is a 2.5 GPA or higher, and that you're following the either the IGETI or the CSU, and of course a minimum of 30 transferable semester units. And it's also, I do want to say that it's going to vary by HBCU. Some HBCUs require less than 30 units, some require 24 units. It really depends. If that's a school of interest, which HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, there's a link on here as well that I can later share if there's more questions on that, but I just wanted to briefly touch on that. Okay, next question. Sorry, next slide. Yes, perfect. Okay, so now I give you a little bit of an insight. I know it's a lot of information. Again, transfer is a big component to your academics at community college. So that's why there's so much information out there. And sometimes we don't really know where to go, where to start, what to consider. But I want to go back to that question that a student asked about the differences between a CSU and a UC, because I think that's very important as well as students make their decisions and consider all of their options. And what I can say from my personal experience and from what I've learned as well from others is that it really depends on the area of study that a student aspires to go to. Myself, for example, I attended a CSU system, which is more of a hands-on practical system. For example, nursing is where you'll find that major at a CSU. You'll also find more so business programs, different majors that are more hands-on, versus the UC is a little bit more of a research, as well as they do have that component where you can learn, the majors are very similar. So for example, a student in sociology can transfer to sociology at Sac State as well as sociology at UC. So there's definitely options, right? But it's really more where a student see themselves long term. If you, for example, want to go to medical school, it's advised to do more so of a UC route, not necessarily, it's not required, right? But that's what we've seen in trends, is that students who want to do more so research and more long term, then that's where students would be able to gain that experience at a UC. And let's see, I think we have another question. Did I see something pop up? Yeah. Okay, yeah, Adim, go ahead.
Thank you. This is kind of backtracking just a little bit. If somebody applies to UC Davis one fall as like a general transfer applicant and they don't get accepted, are they allowed to apply again the following fall?
Good question, Adim. Yes, so students are able to apply, as I mentioned earlier, to more than one school. So you can apply to UC, CSUs, you can apply to more than one UC, more than one CSU. That's always actually very advice on our end. I actually didn't touch on this with the application, but the application itself, each application is now $70. But or to add on to that is that students who do mostly qualify for financial aid, um, or depending on your income status, they will grant you an access to get a fee waiver. So that is an option for students who are, applying to a UC or CSU. $70 is the fee, but there are fee waivers embedded within the application. And with that, going back to your question, Nadim, students are able to apply more than once and to the same school, the same major. Of course, you also want to like learn, or why is it that, unfortunately you weren't able to get in that year, but then connecting again with a counselor or a UC representative or a CC representative, you're able to learn like what was the missing piece that you can now, fit in to make sure that the next year you apply, you are able to be admitted, or the reasons why you weren't able to be admitted, you can work on those. So good question. Mhm.
Thank you. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else?
So
If
there
not,
is a there is a question about the UC the tag being closed for Davis for fall 2022.
oh yeah, yeah. So we were recently notified that that has been the case for UC Davis tag. Unfortunately, I'm not a representative of UC Davis, so I can't really explain the reason why or how that's, I know that's impacted a lot of our students. So my first bet is really to connect with a counselor as soon as you can, at least this semester, or even in the summer, as you're getting ready to, if you are getting ready to apply for that major, to see what are your options and what that can look like for you. I know I was kind of saddened to know that that's the case for our UC tag students in computer science, but that is the case, unfortunately, for Davis. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Of course, other questions, please bring them up. I love this, being able to answer and interact with you all. So thank you for asking good questions. I want to highlight a little bit about our center, what we offer in the transfer center. As I mentioned, the importance of meeting with your counselor and or your UC representative. So at Sacramento City College, we do have a partnership with UC Davis, which is TOP, Transfer Opportunity Program. You can also quickly Google that, or if you're taking notes, write that down. UC Top allows us to have a representative to represent our Sac City students. So we have an assigned representative who visits us, well, now virtually, but if we were in person, the representative would visit us 3 or 4 times a month. And that allows our Sac City students to really connect with that same representative and be able to have that communication as to what their path will look like for a UC transfer. Um, and I can also later, or Hector, thank you for adding that on there. Perfect, because that really allows students to connect with the possibility of getting closer to transfer, getting those connections with the representative. And they're able to review your UC tab. They're able to also look over your tag and see what can really prepare you for your UC transfer. And again, that's just one representative. We have plenty of others who visit us. This month we have UC Riverside. Last month we had UCLA. We always have Sac State. So Sac State visits us every Thursday throughout the semester. And we also have Humboldt, Chico, different representatives that are here holding space for you as our Sac City students, whether you're at the Davis Center, West Sac Center, or at other Los Rios. If you do attend ARC, CRC, they also have a transfer center who offers a similar process and similar representatives. We also have the ability to, when we were in person, we had our own space in computer labs where you can come in and get some support on working on applications, researching and exploring different colleges and different universities that you may be interested in. We can still do that now virtually. As I mentioned, you can meet with myself and I can go more in depth with what it looks like for you to transfer to a university. So please reach out. We are more than open to still continue to offer our services virtually. We also have Transfer Day, which was our big day where we had over 60 representatives come visit our campus and table out and offer their resources in person. Now we're doing a virtual format in the fall. So we're hoping to still continue to offer those services where we had Universities from all over California come to Sac City and offer the admissions information for you to hopefully one day go to their university. We also have college tours. Unfortunately, right now they're not happening because of being virtual. We have a few links where we can offer you quote unquote virtual tours, and those are actually pretty neat. I went to a Humboldt one, and you're able to see the campus in a virtual space. So if you do want to inquire about that, you can also let me know, and I can share those resources with you. And again, I want to emphasize the importance of the application process. We know that that's a big process for our students. And we want to let you know that I can help you, or we can help you in the center from day one to all the way up through your actual, when you press a button and you click submit. So even if you're, planning to apply within a year or a year and a half or next year, you can start preparing and getting your ducks in a row now. And this is where this space is available for you to do so. Okay. Any questions, comments? If not, we can go to the next slide, Ilana. Okay, perfect. So this is what I mentioned a little bit. We do have various representatives. This is what our May month is looking like. We just had our UC Davis appointment 2 days ago at Sac City. And then we had UOP as well yesterday, which is a private university. We have UC Riverside, Humboldt, Sac State is continuing to visit us, and Sonoma State as well next week. And again, this is just a glimpse of what 1 month looks like, but every month we have various representatives. So let's say you are interested in a different university, a different, other than these posted, you can definitely check them out. Or I can also connect you with them. So maybe they're not virtually visiting us. For example, San Diego State, they don't usually virtually visit us, but we do have a contact that I can connect you with. So you can get that extra little support directly from someone who works there, who has the knowledge of admissions, who can give you that little insight of what it looks like to transfer to their university. Okay. And now I want to talk a little bit about Destination UC Davis. But before we get there, is there anything else that you all would like me to highlight about the CSUs? Anything I mentioned about the application? I know it's a lot of information, so I want to make sure I give that space in a few minutes to answer any questions about that. Okay.
So we have 3 hands that went up all. So I
Okay.
think I saw Huda put their hand first. I think it was Danesh second, and then Adim. So we'll go in that order. Huda, you feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, so I was looking at the assist.org for my major, and basically, so on the website, like on the actual college website, I saw that they were offering that major for undergraduate students. But then once I went onto Assist and was looking like what pre-major classes I needed in order to, go to that college, it wasn't it wasn't listed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You want to answer that? Go ahead, Liliana.
Say you can.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
So, okay, thank you, Huda, for that question. So what the assist.org, that report is a list of courses that are articulated, meaning classes are equally or similar to the university that you're attending to or hoping to attend to, and the course that's being offered at the community college you're attending. So what it means is if the class is not listed and it says not articulated, means that Sac City in this instance does not offer a similar course for that major. And so that what that tells you, actually, if you don't see a class on that that you could take at Sac City that is equivalent to UC Davis or UC Berkeley or whatever it is that you most likely are going to have to take that class once you transfer to whatever university that is. And so that's when students get like mad or something, is that they're like, I thought I finished all my major preparation at the community college. You finished your major preparation available at your community college. So if you don't see a course articulated, it means that that class is a lower division course that you're going to have to take once you transfer. So please keep that in mind, and it is good to look at the articulation agreement to know what those courses you're taking and which ones are the ones you may have to take once you transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I believe Danesh was next.
Hello, yeah, thank you. And first up, I apologize for the noise in the background on my end. Um, my question was, I guess just to clarify, um, when applying to UCs, you need to finish all the courses on the assist that lists that required, but that it lists as required. But for CSUs, am I correct to understand that you technically don't need to finish all the courses? All you need to do is be working towards those courses until you reach 60 units?
Danesh, that's a very good question. And so there's a few parts to that question that I can answer and maybe give you a little bit more of an insight. So when it comes to a CSU, the differences in the requirements, of course, is very clear, right? UC and CSUs have different requirements. Now, if you depending on the university, for example, do you know what CSU that you want to transfer to, Danesh?
So the top one that I have in mind is Cal Poly Slow.
Cal Poly. Yeah. So depending on the university, the importance of the requirements is going to be very, very, selective to the university. However, as a person who went through the, transfer system and, as a person who works in education and works alongside counselors, I'm able to say that it's very, very highly recommended and advised that you do fulfill your as many requirements as you can, hopefully all of them, because of the the impaction. And that's not to say that because of that you may or may not be admitted, but that could be an important factor to consider. If you are competing versus a student who did complete all of their requirements versus yourself, or just saying quote unquote, if you didn't, then that could determine whether if that person does get in or not. Which is why they I know, working with the CSUs, is they usually recommend like have them all done. Why would you wait until you get to the CSU to fulfill them when you can take them at the university? Of course, if we offer, I'm sorry, at the community college. Of course, only if we offer them, right? As Liliana said, some of them are, sometimes they're not all articulated, which is none of your fault, and so just keep that in mind and consider that as an option, especially when you're looking at different universities like Cal Poly, San Diego State, as going to vary the importance on what requirements have been completed, and working with your counselor. I would suggest working with a counselor because sometimes counselors get more information than we see on the websites or that we see on direct links. And that's where you're really able to gauge that decision, whether you should apply to transfer without having them completed, or if you shouldn't, or if you should take them over the summer, or however that may be for you. Every student is different. So just keep that in mind when it comes to deciding what classes you should be taking and in what order as well.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
the
and
next
especially.
question is
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Adi.
Actually, I don't have a question. I figured it out. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Adim. It's always nice to hear voices and interact with others as well. But yeah, another thing that I wanted to point out is, as I mentioned, I was a transfer student as well, so I could definitely say that the courses that you're taking your first and second year, right, in equivalence to a student who's at the CSU or UC, it's the same course, right? So in a sense, you're saving more money by taking it at the community college versus waiting to take it at the university, or CSU or UC. So if you have that opportunity to take the courses, I would most definitely take the courses at the community college. Okay, and then I know we're running short in time, so I want to make sure we give a few more minutes for these next two slides that I want to share. So I want to share this new project that we are actually launching within these next few months and semesters, is what we have called an Equity Transfer Initiative Project. And really our goal, I know I mentioned a lot about UC Davis and TOP, and it's really a big collaboration where we want to gauge and we want to push more of our students to transfer to a UC, because it is possible and because we have the resources available. And so we are building this project to allow our students who come from these various backgrounds, as you can see on the screen, first generation, African American, Black, Latinx students transfer to the UC. Now, that doesn't mean that we pick and choose our students. We want to make sure that we offer all of our resources available to our students. So that's why I'm sharing this project here with you all and this presentation, and I'll put the link in the chat so we have it available. So you're able to see a little bit more information, and if it's something you're interested in, if you can click on the next slide, Liliana. This is some of the support services that we offer through Destination UC Davis. So you'll have access to have academic and personal counseling. You'll have that mentorship and guidance as to what it looks like to transfer to UC Davis. Again, application assistance with the UC TAP, UC TAG. We have we'll have a coordinator for the project that will really connect with our students and have that cohort system where our students are able to really prepare what it looks like to transfer to UC Davis. And so if you are interested and this is something that maybe catches your attention, I'll put the link in the chat so you have some information about it. Okay, and then Liliana, if you can go to the next, I believe this is pretty much it. Yeah, so this concludes the general gist of transfer. Again, we can have a conversation all day long, but of course we only have about an hour to have a conversation about transfer. So again, I want to thank you all for holding the space and bringing up great questions that I'm sure a lot of our students also may have. So thank you all for those who raised their hand and who were able to ask some questions. And if you have more comments or questions, please put them in the chat as well. I'll try to answer those as well. Thank you. And Liliana, anything else you want to cover or conclude with?
Thank you. No, first and foremost, thank you so much, Paola. I know I've done this presentation many times and still there's always like so much to cover, right?
Yeah.
And I think that really shows like that it's a great benefit to be here at this time because there's some of this information maybe y'all are familiar with or maybe something is new. So hopefully you all were able to get clarification of the transfer process and also know that you can guarantee your admissions to a UC. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I had as a first generation college student. I did not realize how powerful it is to have a guaranteed admission. And the way that you can get a guaranteed admission is by doing and following up with these like opportunity that Paola just talked about, like the destination transfer, that you can get a guaranteed spot to UC Davis. Specifically again through the tag or through this program, and don't like X yourself out if you don't think it's a possibility because of funds. One thing is the Blue and Gold program that helps students pay for tuition, which is big. So please be proactive with the transfer center. Please be proactive with your UC Davis representative or the top program overall, because it's not just for UC Davis. It's actually for UCs and CSUs. Although it is working under the UC Davis admissions office, it's open to supporting students who transferring wherever they want, because it's ultimately creating access to higher education. So, but the only thing I do want to add it is like advocating for the tag, advocating for guaranteed admission for the CSU through the ADT, and I'm also the Davis Achievement Program counselor. So if you do want to meet and ask you specific questions, I know that there was a question about how do I know what units do I need to transfer? Feel free to meet with me or with another counselor you're working with. Thank you, Hector, for adding that. And then Hector added information about our program as well and how to meet up. So please feel free to follow up with that information, as well as Paola's. I know we're at 2:00, so some of y'all are logging off, which is fine. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, Paola. Like, round of applause.
Of course.
They need to add like the little applaud function instead of just a little. Thank you, Huda.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all. And again, if you can go to the last slide, Liliana, so maybe they could take a picture or a screenshot. This is our direct contact information. And if you follow us on Instagram as well, we update on there any events or important things that are coming up in the transfer center. So please check those out as well. Thank you all.
Yeah, and then I know I have a couple minutes. If anyone has questions, I am gonna stop the recording.
I had a question. So you mentioned that every Thursday there's a Sac State representative that comes here. Is that today?
Yes, correct. So every Thursday, he does visit our